Hey everybody, Lisa here. So I just want to jump right into what I wanted to talk about in today's video. This story just ripped my heart out and it doesn't seem to be getting a lot of coverage. So I wanted to try to make more awareness about what is going on in Mississippi. So I've got this article up here. Let's go through this article and talk about this. A mother reported her son missing in March. Police kept the truth from her for months. Betterston Wade's search for her adult son ended when she discovered that an officer had run him over. And without telling her, authorities buried him in a pauper's field. So this is in Jackson, Mississippi. 7 months of searching for her lost son brought Betterson Wade to a dirt road leading into the woods, past an empty horse stable and a scrapyard. The last time she'd seen her middle child, Dexter Wade, 30, as he left home with a friend. She reported him missing, and Jackson police told her they'd been unable to find him, she said. It wasn't until 172 excruciating days after his disappearance that Betterston learned the truth. Dexter had been killed less than an hour after he'd left home, struck by a Jackson police car as he crossed a nearby interstate highway. Police had known Dexter's name and hers, but failed to contact her, instead, letting his body go unclaimed for months in the county morgue. Now it was early October, and Betterston had finally been told where she could find her son. She pulled up to the gates of the Hines County Penal Farm, her sister in the passenger seat. A sheriff's deputy and two jumpsuited inmates in a pickup told her to follow them. They bounced down the road and curved into the woods, crawling past, crawling past clearings where rows of small signs jutted from the earth, each marked with a number. You can see the photos here. And just so you know, we're going to jump over to Google Maps here in a bit. And we're going to see if we can find anything on Google Maps in regards to this. But you can see this dirt road here. You can see the numbered grave markers. Just just a number. This is absolutely heart-wrenching. You can see this photo here with her being led by the sheriff and a couple other people with her. This is just awful. Girl, look at this, Betterston 65 said to her sister. Would you believe they would bury someone out here? The caravan came to the end of the road at another clearing with more markers. The deputy took one of Betterston's hands, her daughter the other, and they walked to the mounds of loosely packed dirt. They stopped at grave number 672. That's this grave right here. Oh, this is so heartbreaking. Really? Betterston said. She bent over, hands on her knees. She cried out, her voice echoing off the surrounding trees. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Here are some photos of Dexter Wade. This is so heartbreaking. Growing up in Jackson, Dexter was a sweet little boy, sharp with computers, a leader among classmates, a lover of nice clothes, a dreamer who hoped one day to run his own business refurbishing old cars. That went awry in his teens when he got lost under the influence of older men who stole cars and did drugs, Betterston said. A single mother of three who worked at night. Betterston said she wasn't always around for Dexter, but she always bailed him out of jail. He always returned home, Betterston said. Although Dexter's boyhood aspirations did not come true, he had a girlfriend, Candace Thomas, had two daughters who remained a bright spot for him. Even the couple's romantic relationship dissolved, even after Dexter served two stints in prison, one for attempted auto theft and the other for armed robbery, according to the Mississippi Department of Corrections. He was released in 2017. When he got out, Dexter remained friends with Thomas and was a committed father, she said. Although Thomas had full legal custody, Dexter talked to his daughters often and visited them in Gulfport, 3 hours away. During the summers, they came to stay with him at Betterston's home in Jackson. He was sweet and loving, especially when it came to the kids, Thomas said. But prison had clearly damaged him. You could look in his eyes and see he wasn't the same person, Thomas said. I could tell he was struggling mentally. Dexter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, Betterston said. After starting medication, he decreased his legal drug intake and stayed at home most of the day, cleaning and taking care of the yard. He liked to give homemade ice pops to kids on their street, handed food to people who didn't have homes, and occasionally sold sodas and chips in the neighborhood. He rarely left the house for more than a day or two without calling. He never showed signs of wanting to hurt himself. He didn't like that he was in a bad place, but I don't know what happened that particular day. On March 5th, Betterston, a retired Nissan line technician who worked part time as a home health aide, returned home and found one of her windows broken. She said, excuse me, she and Dexter argued about it, and around 7:30 p.m. he left with a friend, she said. Days passed without a word. On March 14th, Betterston called the Jackson Police Department to report him missing. The decision to call the police was difficult for Betterston. She did not trust them. In 2019, her 62-year-old brother died after a Jackson officer slammed him to the ground. The officer was convicted of manslaughter, but is appealing. Her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit accusing Jackson officers of excessive force and attempting to cover up their actions, and accusing the city of failing to properly train and supervise the officers. Well, isn't this interesting, you guys, what we just read? So she filed a lawsuit again accusing Jackson officers of excessive force, and then come to find out. Okay, let's keep reading and then we'll talk about this. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit accusing Jackson officers of excessive force and attempting to cover up their actions, and accusing the city of failing to properly train and supervise the officers. The city has denied the claims and said it isn't liable for what happened. The officers' lawyer said they acted responsibly and lawfully. A federal judge dismissed some of Betterson's claims. Others remain pending in state court. Betterson said her mother advised her not to call the police about Dexter. That is so sad. My mama told me they're not going to do anything, Betterston recalled, but I had to do something to find Dexter, and I thought that was the best way. An investigator came to Betterston's house and took a statement, she said. She emailed the investigator a picture of Dexter. He left a card with a case number on it. 2 days later, she emailed a different investigator another photo of her son. The original investigator filed an incident report that misspelled Dexter's name as Dester, Dester. Interesting. Betterston said she kept in regular touch with police, asking for updates and requesting that they put a picture on TV. She did her own search, checking out abandoned homes and driving around her neighborhood, asking if anyone had seen him. She never found the friend who left home with him. There's a video here. We'll get back to that. Dexter's teen daughters and their mother grew frantic, calling Betterston for news. The girls would ask, "Did you hear from my daddy?" Thomas said. "We just kept praying he was all right." Carrie Banks, a close friend of Betterson's, accompanied her on searches of the neighborhood and watched as stress and desperation wore on her. She called someone every week and asked about her child. Banks said she couldn't get it off her mind. She was crazy about that boy. Each time she called, police told her they had no information. It turned out that the Jackson Police Department had the answers all along. So heartbreaking. The department did not respond to the detailed questions and has not commented on or explained how it handled Dexter's death. After this article was published, a spokesperson for Jackson Mayor, oh, I'm going to screw up this name. We'll just say a spokesperson for Jackson Mayor emailed a statement to NBC News offering our sincerest prayers and condolences to Dexter's family. The spokesperson, Melissa Faith Payne, added in an interview the police did not intentionally harm Dexter or his family. There was miscommunication, but there was no malicious intent anywhere in this whole situation, Payne said. This account has been pieced together with interviews with Dexter's family and a coroner's investigator, along with court records and documents provided in response to public records requests, a crash report, incident reports, and coroner's office records. Betterston also shared personal notes, emails, Dexter's death certificate, a coroner's report, and case information cards provided to her by police. Those materials show that just before 8 p.m. on March 5th, Dexter was walking across Interstate 55, a 6-lane highway, when a Jackson police SUV, driven by an off duty corporal, struck him in the southbound lanes. So it was just before 8 p.m. So in March. So I'm assuming it was dark. Dexter Wade's final minutes. Dexter Wade, 37, was less than a mile from his mother's house when he was struck and killed by an off duty police officer on March 5th. So, and over here, 7:54 p.m. So less than a half an hour later, he was struck and killed. The corporal who alerted police to the collision was not injured. He was not suspected of being under the influence of drugs or alcohol and was not given field sobriety tests. So he was not suspected of being under the influence, but he was also not given field sobriety tests. So who knows, right? Nor was he cited for any traffic violations. The death was ruled accidental. Dexter suffered severe injuries, including to his head. A toxicology report later noted that Dexter had PCP and meth in his system. An investigator from the Hinds County Coroner's Office responded to the scene. He did not find identification on Dexter while examining him, but found a bottle of prescription medication in his pocket with his name on it. 3 days later, March 8th, the investigator, LeGrand Elliott, contacted the medical facility that had provided the prescription and received Betterston's name as Dexter's next of kin. So 3 days later, they received his mother's name as his next of kin. According to Elliott's case notes, according to Elliott's case notes, Elliott said he called the number listed for Betterston in the facility's records and left a voicemail but got no response. Betterston confirmed that the number Elliott said he called was correct, but she does not remember receiving a call from him and was not able to access her Boost mobile phone records to check. Elliott confirmed Dexter's identification on March 9th when the state crime lab said his fingerprints matched those it had on file for him, according to his notes. Elliot said in an interview that he passed what he'd found, a phone number and an address, to the Jackson Police Department's Accident Investigation Squad so they could notify Betterston of Dexter's death. Once we get that information, I turn it over to police because it is their jurisdiction so that they can do proper death notification. Betterston, meanwhile, turned to Facebook where she posted pictures of Dexter with her phone number, pleading for him or anyone who saw him to call. On March 15th, the day after she reported Dexter missing, Elliot followed up with Jackson police for updates. No kin has been located as of yet, he wrote in his notes. You've got to be kidding me. They already knew who Dexter was. This is ridiculous. Elliot made another follow up phone call on March 30th and was told there was nothing new. Meanwhile, you've got mom posting on Facebook, asking around, looking for him, doing whatever she can. And they're just over there like, you got to be kidding me. The following day, the coroner's office asked the Hinds County Board of Supervisors for approval to bury Dexter's remains in a pauper's field at the Hinds County Penal Farm. A cold. I apologize. As that request was being filed, Betterston posted another photo of Dexter on Facebook. Has anyone have anyone saw my son Facebook? And the police are just over there like, we don't know anything. The Board of Supervisors approved the coroner's burial request on April 3rd. 4 days later, Elliot called Jackson police again. No new updates, he wrote in his notes. On May 7th, so this is what, March, almost 3 months later, his mom posted on Facebook, Dexter, if you are out there, your kids miss you and your family miss you. We love you. We always love you. 2 days after that, Elliot called police again for an update and was told there was none, according to his notes. He tried one last time in June and got the same response. On June 18th, it was Father's Day. On Facebook, Dexter's mom pleaded to him directly, I'm trying to find you, but no one knows what happens to you. I wish someone would have saw you. I love you very much. Please come home. Ugh, this is heart-wrenching. On July 14th, with no one claiming Dexter's body, the county buried him in a field at its penal farm among other unclaimed bodies. Dexter's mom was still searching. Dexter, your kids miss you. I miss you. And your grandma, sister, auntie, cuz, friends miss you. She wrote on Facebook on July 16th. You don't have to come home. Just let us know you're all right. We love you. And here's a photo of the field. Look at this, you guys. It's just overgrown weeds, random grave markers with numbers, just zero. uh, they don't even maintain it. Okay, moving on. Through the rest of July, Dexter's mom said she called missing persons investigators and got no news. The lead investigator told her he was retiring at the end of the month, and a new investigator called her August 13th to say she was taking over the case. Less than 2 weeks later, on August 24th, the new investigator called to tell her she had found Dexter and that an officer would come to see her in person. So, like 6 months later, when she said that, I knew he was dead, Betterston recalled. Ugh. The officer, a member of the Accident Investigations Unit, met Betterston at her mother's house. Betterston said he told her that Dexter had been hit by a police cruiser while trying to cross the highway. Betterston, weeping, asked the investigator for more details. He told her to call the coroner's office. Betterston found Elliot. He told her that he'd known Dexter's name since the day he died and had passed the information to police. And he told her about the pauper's burial. Betterston couldn't understand why police told her for months they didn't have answers when they had the truth from the start. They had me looking for him all the time, and they knew who he was, Betterston said. She wondered if it had anything to do with her brother's death and her allegations against the police in that case. That's what I was going to mention earlier. Maybe it was a vendetta. Maybe they buried my son to get back at me, she said. Thomas said she and her daughters were gutted. The hardest thing I ever had to do is tell my girls that their dad is never coming back. She added, I just wanted someone to answer for what happened. I want to know what really happened. Betterson tried to get as close as she could to the spot where Dexter died. Oh my gosh. She hoped it would help her understand what he was doing on the highway, but walking the area, which is lined with concrete barriers, did not clear anything up. Betterson also began to doubt the official timeline. She didn't see how Dexter could have made it from her house to the scene of the accident in less than a half an hour on foot. She wondered if someone gave him a ride. That's a good point. I just feel like something else must have happened, Betterson said. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, this isn't passing the smell test, I don't think. The math ain't really mathin', as they say these days. Look at this. This poor, oh my gosh. My heart just goes out to this poor mom. Betterson paid the coroner's office a $250 fee to claim Dexter's body. So, really? She's got to pay them to claim his body. It took her several more weeks to figure out where he was buried and how to find him. She made an appointment to see his grave on a Tuesday afternoon in early October. At plot 672, Betterston asked her sister, daughter, and Banks, her friend, to join her for a prayer. They clasped hands at the edge of the dirt. Dexter, I want to tell you I am so sorry, she said, voice rising. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but Mama didn't know. Mama didn't know. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to reach for the Kleenex. Ugh. She began to sob. I always loved you, and I miss you. Farewell, baby, farewell. They got into their cars, back on the dirt road. Betterson began planning the next step in her ordeal, finding the money to get her son out of that hole and into a proper grave, a place where everybody could see his name. Oh, this is absolutely heart-wrenching. Let's go back to this map. I wonder how many miles apart this is here. And Dexter's mom might have a point. I mean, honestly, for me to walk completely around this high school behind my house and do a full trip takes me at least a half an hour. So she might have a point. I almost I smell a little bit of a cover up. But guys, there's a lot more to this story, okay? So, let's move on. Let's see what this video says here. Hold on.
New NBC News reporting tonight is giving us more insight on a story of death and mystery and anger.
Okay, my computer's not super happy about me playing that video.
Over an apparent lack of good police work and accountability in Jackson, Mississippi. I'm talking about the story of Dexter Wade, who we now know was killed less than a half hour after leaving his home back in March. But his family only found that out this month. Wade was struck and killed by a Jackson police car, apparently, as he tried to cross a highway nearby. And even though police knew exactly who they hit within days of that accident, officials say, his mother, Betterson Wade, would spend the next 7 months. She would spend 7 months looking for her son. It wasn't until 172 difficult days after Betterson last saw Wade that they came together again, this time at his unmarked grave in a state-run cemetery. NBC's John Shoup is the reporter with this story. John, what have you? The details here are just extraordinary, right? Because essentially what happened here is this 7-month-long mystery for this family, despite police apparently to official accounts knowing for months who they hit, where he was buried, and not reaching out to the family. How did this happen?
That's one of the questions that we have, is how exactly it happened, but we know some details and a sketch of.
I'm really glad that NBC is covering this, because I know even in researching this story, there wasn't a ton of coverage that I could find. So I'm really glad they're covering this. I've also got some other video clips from TikTok to show you guys. So again, like I said, this is just scratching the surface of this story. So let's see what else they have to say.
What happened. It began, as you mentioned, on March the 5th, when Dexter Wade, he's 37 years old, left home and never came back. It turned out not far from home, not long after he left, he was struck and killed by an off-duty Jackson police.
My computer's not really happy about me playing this video. It wants to keep like glitching out. So I'll try to get through it. If it keeps glitching too much, you guys, we'll just move on, because I do have clips from TikTok. So we'll give this another go. But if it keeps glitching out, I apologize. My computer's like, hey, I can only handle so much. What are you doing? But anyways, let's try one more time and we'll see if it'll play through.
Officer. A coroner's investigator arrives at the scene, takes his body back to the examination table, finds a prescription bottle of pills that has his name on it. The coroner's investigator calls the hospital where he got the pills, gets the next of kin, who's his mother, Betterstein Wade, and forwards that information on to the Jackson Police Department's Accident Investigation Squad. Meanwhile, the mother, Betterstein, has no idea that any of this has happened. On the 14th of March, reports him missing to the missing persons unit, and for months is checking for updates and searching for him and gets no answers. Meantime, it's not clear why, but we're told that they had him in the morgue the entire time. So ultimately, someone figured it out within the Jackson Police Department and let her know, and that's when she realized that while she was looking for him, they had assumed in the coroner's office that he was unclaimed and arranged for him to be buried in a pauper's field. And so, as you showed the pictures just earlier, a minute ago, that moment came a couple weeks ago where she finally got to see the grave marked only with a number of where her.
I know, John, that you and the team pieced this together.
That is just.
From interviews with his family, the coroner's investigator, court records, documents provided in response to your requests, a crash report, incident reports, other documents, office records. I mean, so much of this. It took a lot of putting some puzzle pieces here just to get, I think, some sense of what happened. And yet through it all, as of tonight, have you gotten any response from the police department itself?
None. As soon as just before leaving to come talk to you, I was reaching out.
Just my opinion, and my opinion only. I smell a little bit of a cover up. Just saying.
Out to the city. They're preparing some sort of response, but I'm not sure that they fully comprehend of how this mistake was made. We have notes, internal notes and documents that show what they knew. It's just not clear yet about why it was shared.
What does accountability look like for this family? Just quickly, John, what does that look like?
I think for Betterstein Wade, the mother, is just somebody to acknowledge that there was a mistake. She can accept if an accident was made, but it's just an acknowledgement and an apology.
Okay. She just wants to be heard, it sounds like. John?
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, so that like I said, there's a lot more to this story. So let's jump out of this article and move on here. Okay, you guys, let's watch a quick clip. I actually have a couple clips here I want to show you, and we'll talk about them and we'll dive a little bit deeper into this story. So hang tight.
This morning, the family of Dexter Wade is demanding answers. The 37-year-old was allegedly hit and killed by a Jackson, Mississippi police patrol car back in March and was buried without his family being notified. Only this pole and the number 672 mark his grave.
He was my only son. And I would have never thought this had happened to him.
Wade's mother says she reported him missing on March 14th, but she says it wasn't until 5 months later that she was told he was hit and killed by an off-duty officer as he was walking across a highway.
They could have came in, knocked on the door.
Family attorney Ben Crump says the coroner's office identified Wade using fingerprints and alerted Jackson police 4 days after Wade's death. The coroner also found Wade's name on a pill bottle in his pocket, but the mayor says when police contacted the medical provider, they were given a contact number that was not accurate. But Crump says the coroner contacted Jackson police 7 times between March and June to inquire if Wade's family had been notified that he was in the morgue. The family now speculating whether a previous case involving Wade's uncle played a role in how police handled Wade's death. Wade's uncle was killed in 2019 after prosecutors say he was assaulted and body slammed by Jackson police officers. One officer was convicted in that case.
What other reason would you think that we go through 6 months and they don't tell me who my son is?
Over 200 bodies were just found in unmarked graves behind a jail in Mississippi, and they were not inmates. As you can see in this picture, where the bodies are buried, they are only marked with little metal placards with numbers, some of them not numbered at all. This is happening in Raymond, Mississippi, right outside of Jackson. They're trying to call it a pauper cemetery, but that's not what it is. It's intended for people who have no known family. But one of the men buried there was actually hit and killed by a police officer and had his identification in his front pocket. His family was not notified of his death, and they thought he was missing up until this discovery. And the family feels like their loved one was just thrown out like trash. And they used the inmates at this jail to dig the graves and bury the bodies. Apparently, they just put the people in body bags and then placed them into shallow graves. Now there's multiple people who live in that area showing up with pictures of their missing loved ones, wondering if they could be buried in this field.
So we'll take that one with a grain of salt. I don't know if I haven't seen for sure that his ID was in his front pocket, Dexter's ID. I haven't seen that for sure. I don't know for sure if inmates dig the graves. That was I'm not sure about any of that, but we'll take it with a grain of salt. But as far as the 215 bodies, that I have confirmed. And also, there are definitely people coming forward wanting to know if their missing loved ones could possibly be in that field. So let's move on to another clip here.
Settling situation in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi to be exact. It's been revealed 215 bodies were buried in unmarked graves behind a state jail in Jackson, of course. Attorney Ben Crump is now calling for an investigation. Families of the dead reportedly had no idea until last month. Some of them, those grave sites were only labeled by a number and a metal rod. Joining us to talk about it, activist Arthur Silky Slim Reed, who also works with Ben Crump.
So, Arthur, this started with Dexter Wade's case back in March, right? He was an individual who was hit by a police officer, and his family thought he was simply missing, but he was dead and buried, and no one notified them.
Well, the thing about it is that he had identification on him, Isaiah, and the medical examiner gave it to the lead detective who said he called, didn't get an answer, and they didn't worry about doing anything else. What we're finding, Isaiah, is that Mississippi is Mississippi. It's an ugly Mississippi. And this is sad because now we have six other individuals that has been put into this same grave. And if you look at the video from when we first went to that site, buzzards were flying overhead. And we were trying to figure out why are the buzzards flying overhead? But it's because they're putting them in shadow graves, and the only thing that they're putting them in is a body bag without embalming the bodies. So the stench from the bodies are drawing buzzards there. It's so inhumane for anybody to do any one like that, Isaiah, is just horrible, is what we can say. And that's not even a word that we should use in a situation like this. It's something that we haven't seen.
And what we're seeing here is over 200 people in this, what they consider a pauper's grave behind the county jail there. And what you guys are learning in your investigation is many of these families were never called, were never notified. Many of them still think their family members or thought their family members were simply missing, but they were dead and buried and never got a call from any investigators, any law enforcement officials or authorities in Jackson, Mississippi.
That's right. And one of the things that we faced being Mississippi is that they thought that we were playing the race card. We have white clients as well. There were white people that were buried the same way, Isaiah. And any human being that's buried the way that they're burying these individuals, it says a lot about the people that's doing this criminal act. And the only thing that we're asking, because people always look at us when we're out fighting for civil rights of individuals, the only thing that we're asking in this case, we want you to do the right thing and give them a humane burial. And the city is, so it's crazy, Isaiah, to see something like that. It's 2023. It's not 1940. But to see them just dumping bodies in a grave like that, and no name, just a number. So they'll say, well, number 13, that's Arthur Reed. Number 21 is Isaiah Carey. But we don't really know until we get the remains. And then the remains had decomposed so bad, we just have to take them at their word. And when you look at the story, they told us that they would exhume this body at 12 noon, but they ended up taking this young man, Dexter Wade, out of the ground at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. They say we were not going to allow them to embarrass us with those cameras. If you're not embarrassed by what you're doing, it's shame on you.
Absolutely incredible. Now, you guys, along with Ben Crump and I think Attorney Dennis Week, you all are asking for a federal investigation, that the feds come in and take a look at this and see exactly what's going on, because there's some questions as to Dexter Wade's death when he was hit by the police officer. Whatever happened with the officer in this case? And why wasn't his family ever notified that he was dead and not just a missing person? So, bottom line, you want an investigation, right?
We think many civil rights were violated in Dexter Wade's case. Not notifying the family, burying him without permission when you knew who he was. That's the key issue right there. You knew who this individual was. And if you look at the Dexter Wade case, it's sad, but Dexter Wade's uncle was killed by Jackson police, and they knew the family because they was involved in an ongoing lawsuit with that family, with Attorney Sweets, who you're talking about. So this is very, very, very troubling for us for you to know this family already, and for you to do something like this. This was adding insult to already injury that you had done to this family, Isaiah.
Well, that was a pretty interesting video there. And as you saw, there are many other families that are wondering about their loved ones, their missing loved ones. And I think there might be a lot more than bodies buried in this field. I'm just my opinion. I think there might be buried secrets. And I really do hope the feds come in and they need a thorough investigation. And then it makes you wonder how many more of these paupers fields or burial grounds could there be in this country, you guys, that we don't know about? Or it makes my stomach churn just thinking about this. It just makes you wonder. And like I said, this story doesn't seem to be getting a ton of coverage, which is suspicious as well. So I think this is a huge scandal, and I don't think it's just things like this are going on in just Mississippi. It really makes you wonder what other fields like this there could be. So let's watch another clip that I had. Let's see. Let's watch this one here and see what else we can find out.
Homicide victims this year. We recently told you about Dexter Wade, a man in Mississippi who was hit and killed by a Jackson Police Department vehicle and buried without his family's knowledge. Wade's mother told me about when police finally contacted her about her son months later.
Well, when they first called me and said we found Dexter, I said, oh Lord, let him be okay. So I said, where he at or what's going on with him? She said, well, I'll let Officer Gerard come out there and talk to you. And right then, when she said that, it's just my heart dropped because I knew, I just knew that he was deceased.
New reporting by CNN affiliate WLBT has now revealed a similar case. 40-year-old Mario Moore was killed in February, buried in the same pauper's field where Dexter Wade was buried. Moore's family did not find out about his death until October, after seeing his name in WLBT's reporting on more than 20 homicide victims that Jackson police did not disclose to the public. Joining me now is the investigative reporter who brought this to light, CJ LeMaster, with CNN's affiliate there in Jackson. CJ, good to see you. This is, I want to say unbelievable, but not. It is heartbreaking. Tell us this story, because unlike Dexter Wade, who was killed by an off-duty officer, this man, Mr. Moore, was found dead and then reported to police. What's his story?
So what happened here is a situation where he was killed by blunt force trauma. That's what we know. He was found wrapped in a tarp on a street in the western part of the city. And at that point, police claimed they did not there were conflicting reports as to whether there was even ID found on him. But suffice it to say, it took some time for them to identify him. But at that point, all we know from the captain who was in charge of detectives for the department, he told us in an interview that essentially they sent a detective to a home that they found in connection with Moore. They left a card, and that was it. There was no follow-up. We pressed the captain for this in one of our interviews, and he didn't really have any explanation. He said, well, that is sufficient. Now, we know now that since all this had happened, since NBC and other national news agencies have picked up the story as well, that now the city of Jackson, the police department, for the first time has a death notifications policy, a 6-page policy. So that came out of this, but it took the family not finding out about this until October for any of this to happen and for the ball to be rolling. And I got to tell you, Victor, this is something. It was one thing for us to find out that there were 24 individual victims, 22 cases that the public, that we had not been told about. But to find out that one of those was a situation where the family wasn't told either, it like you said, it's heartbreaking. You can't fathom that.
Yeah. Let's listen to Mario Moore's sister, Marquita, here on what she expected from police.
How many times do you come back to notify the family if you did come here? Did you come back the next day? Did you try to follow up on your reports?
And so what is the department doing now? These 24 individual victims, we now know that Moore's family has been notified. Are they trying again to reach out to the next of kin of these people?
So at this point, we don't know. In fact, the department has, as you might imagine, been fairly tight-lipped since these investigations have come forward, since these two cases in particular have garnered such national attention. The department only speaking through a city spokesperson at this point. But it seems, at least going forward, that this will be happening. But even when I tried to get information about these 24 victims, so we could even put that out there to try and help detectives, because you would think that detectives would need that information to the public so they could garner leads, they could look forward to developments in the case. We got very little. I'm saying maybe a paragraph's worth of information. And so that's part of the problem here. We talked to the captain about this, Captain Abraham Thompson, who, by the way, after our story came out, I think a day later, he was shifted. He's no longer over detectives in the department. He's not over a single certified officer. But he told us, he said, well, I'm not even really that frustrated that information didn't get out, because we don't want to put a time frame on solving these cases. And that sort of flies in the face of what you're familiar with, I'm sure. People, the first 48 hours are the most crucial when it comes to investigating homicides.
Yeah. And what more is Jackson saying about this specific case, and what they are planning to do as they move forward? You say this new 6-page protocol.
So this new 6-page protocol, we actually just got a copy of it not long ago. I want to say it was a day or so ago that we finally got a copy of it through a records request. And essentially, it puts Jackson in line with other agencies, with other cities, frankly, smaller than Jackson, that requires every effort to be made to be able to contact these individuals when something happens. Keep in mind that the city actually has blamed this on a miscommunication, on a failure of communication, if you will, but recently has shifted that to blaming the coroner's office, because according to statute, the coroner's office does have responsibilities in notifying the family. And so what we saw with the Dexter Wade case, what we're seeing now with the Mario Moore case, is that there's this shifting of blame to the coroner's office. The coroner's office, as you might imagine, not returning our calls, not saying anything publicly about this. We may see more details when it, I would assume, becomes litigated at some point. Obviously, Ben Crump has been retained by both families here, and so hopefully we'll learn some answers through that. But it's certainly been incredibly frustrating to not really know and have any accountability in something like this.
All right, CJ LeMaster with WLBT. Thank you so much for your time.
Did I hear that right? These guys were talking about 20 or so bodies that were victims of homicide that are in that same field that the police haven't even investigated or notified families. And this one family found out that their loved one was in there. They've also retained the same counsel as Dexter's mom. What is going on here? Is this a police dumping ground? Like, what is going on, you guys? This is so suspicious. And they're being so tight-lipped, the police. They're not really saying much, So it really makes you wonder. And then you've got this detective who, that since all this came out, is supposedly, I don't know if it was a detective. I can't remember. Lead detective or something. Anyways, who's no longer over any officers. This is not good, you guys. This needs to be investigated. That's why I wanted to do this video, because this needs a lot of coverage. We need to blow the lid off of this, because I guarantee you there's more of this stuff going on and it needs to be exposed. So I've got another clip here. I don't want to be redundant. So if this is kind of going over too much of the same stuff, I'll stop it and move on from there. Let's see which one. I think it's this one here.
An idea what some of these graves look like. When you don't have family, or when no one knows who your family is, this is how they bury you. This is how you're buried at the penal farm. As I said, it looks like this is how you bury you. You're just a number. You're just a number. They tell me now that the coroner is on her way here. The coroner, Sharon Grisham, is on her way here. As I said to you, NBC, ABC, all of the national media are on their way here. The sheriff is providing security. They're trying to figure out what is taking place. As you can see, it looks as though the coroner now may be on her way down to the gravesite. We're up on the hill. But as I said, it looks like that the body may have been stolen earlier this morning and or last night. And they're trying to figure out what may have happened and why would this body be taken. There is a smell out here. As you see, I have my mask, and I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to put my mask on. There is a smell out here at the penal farm at the moment, and while they're trying to determine what has happened. But as you can see, this is the grave or the cemetery for the indigent. And I call upon every minister, Pastor Hollins and other ministers, to begin to try to put some money together so that the people who are indigent can be buried better than this. This is how you're buried. There's a marker, and many of them they do not have a number on them. Look at this. They're just buried. And it kind of does what they can do to bury, and with the money that they have, they bury them. But there are no headstones, and there was just a stick, as you can see, an iron stick, a stake with a number. This one doesn't even have a number. This one doesn't have. This is how they're buried. This is how they're buried. And some don't have numbers. They're just here. And you see the iron stake. We can fix this. That's something we can do. We can help the sheriff make this better. It's not his fault that it's like this. It's been here a long time, but we're gonna help him make this better. This is my first time here, and as you see, there's another car coming from the cemetery. I believe that may be MSNBC. Are you with MSNBC? Okay, this is where they'll be coming to. So this is what we're dealing with this morning. This is if this has happened, I certainly don't know what is taking place, whether this body has been taken. If this is the case, then my brothers and sisters, this is extremely egregious. It would be my prayer that that's not the case, that this young man's body would still be here at the cemetery. But we're getting reports now that the body has been taken, or whether it was taken last night and early this morning. We do not know. We do not know. We do not know. We do not know. We do know that it was in a box. It was not in a coffin. The body was in a box, and of course, in a bag.
I think what he's referring to is, I think we read it in the article where when they took the body out, they took Dexter's body out early in the morning when it was supposed to be later in the afternoon, and they like rushed his body out of there or something. So again, this is kind of all just coming out little by little. We're getting more pieces to the story. And like I said, I hope they blow the lid off this whole thing and find out. I mean, think about it. What if, you know, someone in law enforcement does something wrong like this one officer did, and they cover it up and they just bury bodies in this field and don't notify families? Like this pastor said, this is absolutely egregious. And how much of this goes on around the country? That's what I'd like to know. So now I think what we'll do is we'll jump over to Google Maps, because I'm curious to see where this field is, this field of bodies. So let's jump over to Google Maps. I want to check that out and kind of see if we can get an idea of what's around there. They say it's kind of behind the jail. So I kind of want to see, like, what's going on. So let's pop over to Google Maps. Okay, guys, before we jump over to the map, I just want to say I do understand. I was thinking about this. that there are situations where bodies cannot be they can't confirm who it is. They have no idea, and there are indigent people that maybe they don't have family and they do need to bury them. I do understand that. What's really bugging me about this is the lack first of all, that Dexter they were able to identify him and they knew who he was and they didn't contact the family. And then you've got these 20 some odd other bodies that were victims of homicide that they didn't investigate. That's I'm finding really suspicious about this. So, anyways, let's jump over to the map. Let me share my screen. I have to share my screen so you guys can actually see. Let's see here. Okay. Here we go. So here is okay, look right here is the Hines County Detention Facility. So this would be the jail right here. And they're saying that these bodies are located on the penal farm, which is in very close proximity of the jail. Another thing is they're saying that these are not inmates buried here. So interesting. I find that interesting. So when I was watching the minister talk in the field, I was trying to look around for landmarks, and I remember a white building kind of like this one in the background. And it was surrounded by trees, so I'm wondering if this isn't it right here. It's hard to get a really clear picture, and I really doubt that it'll let me go down this road to see. But then again, I thought I saw cars driving like this. It almost looked like they were driving over the graves in that video, but I don't think they were. I don't know, you guys. Let me see. Here's a street view. County Farm Road. It's kind of blurry. But of course, all of this is fenced off. I don't know. I don't think that's going to do us any good. So let me go back. Sorry about my computer. It is not happy with me right now. It's being very slow. I also thought I saw over here somewhere there was a cemetery. But they kept saying the penal farm. So it's got to be here. This is and I remember, like I said, seeing some sort of white building like this. It wasn't this here that I saw in the background. Unless it's something over here. Unless it's in here or something. But again, we saw cars driving in the background. And there's nowhere to really drive here that I can see. But there's this weird patch. Or is that a building? It looks like a patch of dirt to me, but I don't know. As I zoom in closer, I'm wondering if that isn't a rooftop. I wish it was more clear. But this has a road. This is surrounded by trees. It could possibly be over here. It doesn't look like we're going to get a clear picture. But this was the road that we were on that was surrounded by fence. And we saw that truck, like a truck trailer, like a big rig trailer somewhere. So I don't know where exactly we were on this road. Probably right here. Wait. Those look like truck bed trailers. So maybe we were over here somewhere, but by driving along the road virtually, I don't think we're going to be able to see much. I don't think it'll let me go. Let me just pop down there one more time and see what happens. See where it puts us. See, it stops right here at the end of this blue line. I don't think it's going to let us go any farther. It's pretty blurry too. Okay, here's the fencing. Yep, there's no way to go any farther. So anyways, you guys were able to see how close it is to the jail. And let me pop back over. You guys were able to see how close it was to the jail, and it's back behind it. So I thought maybe we could find some markers or some way to, kind of see an overhead view on the map of this field. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to. So anyways, I just really wanted to bring this case to your guys' attention. And I really do hope they investigate this and get the feds involved and really get to the bottom of what's been going on with this Poppers field. And as the story unfolds and more details are released and come out, I will definitely cover it here. I will keep you guys posted. So make sure to subscribe and watch for more videos on this subject as they release more information. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the like button and definitely subscribe. Like I said, this is a brand new channel. I'm trying to get it off the ground. So I really hope you guys enjoy the content. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know your guys' thoughts on this case and what you think. I am definitely interested to hear that. And I'm really thankful for TikTok. I was able to get those clips off TikTok because just really hasn't been a ton of coverage on this case. So, anyways, I will definitely bring you guys more if comes out on this case. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.